In March 2024, a 72-year-old man named Robert stood up from his favorite armchair to answer the phone. He'd been sitting for maybe 40 minutes, nothing unusual. But the moment he rose, the room tilted, his left leg buckled underneath him like it belonged to someone else, and he grabbed the edge of the table just in time. His heart was pounding, his foot was ice cold, and the scariest part? He had walked 2 miles that same morning. He did everything right, and his body still betrayed him in his own living room. If you felt something like that unsteady lurch when you get up too fast, that cold that lives in your feet no matter how many blankets you pile on, those ankles that puff up like rising dough by the time dinner is served, then I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because what happened to Robert is happening quietly, slowly, to millions of people over 60, and almost none of them know why. I'm Dr. Julian Wells. I've spent a long time sitting across from people who were frightened and frustrated in equal measure. They walked every single day, faithfully. They propped their legs up on pillows at night. They wore the compression socks somebody handed them at a clinic. And they still ended up in front of me with those same cold feet, those same swollen ankles, that same creeping fear that they were losing control of their own legs. Here's what nobody had ever slowed down to explain to them. And it's the same thing I'm about to explain to you. The most common advice given for poor leg circulation after 60 is the one piece of advice that might actually be holding your recovery back. Walk more. That's what almost everyone hears. And listen, walking is genuinely good for you. So I want to be crystal clear from the very start that you should keep doing it. But there's one specific movement that actually drives the blood out of your lower legs and pushes it back up toward your heart. And ordinary walking, it barely switches that movement on. Give me a few minutes before you click away thinking you already know all of this. Because the reason your feet are still cold tonight has very little to do with how many steps you racked up today. It comes down to one single muscle that most people never think about even once in their lives. And once you learn how to switch it on, the fix is far simpler than you'd ever guess. But I'm going to hold the exact movement, the one vital exercise I'd choose above all others if you forced me to pick just one, until the very end. Not to tease you for the sake of it, but because if I hand it to you right now before you understand what's actually broken inside your leg, you'll do it wrong, you'll do it lazily, and it won't work. So let's build to it together. It'll be worth the wait, I promise you that. Your second heart, and why it's quietly failing. Let me tell you about that one muscle. It's your calf. Doctors call it the calf muscle pump, and a lot of us call it your second heart. And that's not some cute little phrase we made up to sound clever. Every time your calf tightens, it clamps down on the deep veins buried in your lower leg and physically shoves blood upward, against gravity, back toward your chest. Tiny one-way valves inside those veins snap shut behind each push, so the blood can't come sliding back down. That's the pump. That's your second heart, working away every time you take a step. Now here's what starts happening to that pump after 60. And I want you to picture this clearly. The vein walls get weaker and stretchier, like an old elastic band that's lost its snap. Those little valves start to leak, and the calf muscle itself begins to shrink and lose its power, especially if you spend a good chunk of your day sitting down, which, let's be honest, most of us do. So the pump slows, and when it slows, blood stalls at your ankles instead of climbing back up where it belongs. The swelling gets worse, the feet get colder, the skin down there starts running short on oxygen, and here's the cruel part. The less you move, the weaker the pump gets. And the weaker it gets, the less you want to move. It becomes a slow, quiet downward spiral, and an awful lot of people are somewhere on that spiral right now without even realizing it. I'll come back to what this spiral does. If you ignore it long enough, there's one particular complication that genuinely scares me, and I'll tell you about it in a moment. But first, I want you to meet someone. I'm going to call her Eleanor, and she's really a blend of several people I've cared for over the years, so nobody's privacy is on the line here. Eleanor was 71, sharp as a tack, still driving, still hosting her grandkids for Sunday lunch. But her feet were cold every single night, even in the thick of July, and her ankles turned to bread dough by dinner time, every day. She'd been faithfully walking a mile a day for years, and she was quietly, privately heartbroken that it wasn't helping her one bit. Keep Eleanor in the back of your mind, because what finally changed for her is the entire point of what I'm about to show you. Why this is worth taking seriously. Before we go further, I owe you some straight talk about why this matters more than most people assume. Poor circulation after 60 is not just some small annoyance you're supposed to grin and live with. When blood stops moving well through the legs, small cuts and sores heal slowly. Sometimes they don't heal at all. In the worst cases, and I've seen them, people can end up facing the loss of a toe, or worse. It's also one of the earliest warning signs that the heart and the arteries themselves may be under strain. By the time people reach their 70s, research suggests close to 1 in 5 adults has what we call peripheral artery disease, a narrowing of the arteries feeding the legs. And most of those folks have no earthly idea they have it yet. That's the complication I mentioned. That's why I don't want you to wave this off. Now here's the good news, and it's genuinely good news, so let it land. Fixing this doesn't depend on your step count at all. It depends on a small handful of very specific movements that physically push the blood back up where it's supposed to go. I'm going to walk you through 5 of them, counting down from 5 to 1. Each one does something the one before it couldn't, and I'm saving the single most powerful movement, the one I promised you, for the very end. One quick thing before we start counting down, because it matters to me that you hear it. Everything I'm about to show you is one piece of a much bigger picture, the small daily habits that quietly decide whether you're still walking strong at 80 or reaching for a cane at 70. I took everything I tell my own patients about staying mobile and independent in these years and put it into one simple plan. It's already helped a great many people. If you want it, the link is right there on your screen. You won't need to write anything down. All right, let's begin the countdown at number 5. Number 5. Ankle pumps. This one looks almost too simple to bother with, and that, honestly, is exactly why people wave it off and skip right past it. But here's something that might surprise you. This is very often the first movement patients are handed after leg surgery, before they're even allowed to stand up. Why? Because it keeps the blood from pooling and clotting while they heal, when they can't move much at all. The reason it works is beautifully straightforward. When you flex your foot up and then point it down, your calf contracts and then releases. That motion squeezes the veins and gets the blood moving that's been sitting stagnant around your ankles, like water in a clogged drain. Here's how to do it right. Sit in a chair with both feet flat on the floor. Lift your toes up toward your shins while you keep your heels planted down firmly. Then reverse it. Press your toes down into the floor and lift your heels up, the way you gently ease onto a gas pedal. Slow. Deliberate. That's 1 repetition. Aim for 20 to 30 of them, 2 or 3 times a day. And here's the beauty of it. You can do this while you watch television, while you read, while you sit at the kitchen table waiting for the kettle to sing. Think about how many hours you spend sitting every day, in the car, at meals, in your chair in the evening. Every one of those hours, your pump is switched off and blood is quietly settling into your feet. Ankle pumps flip that switch back on without you even standing up. Walking runs on momentum. You fall forward and catch yourself, over and over, and your calves barely get a full squeeze out of the whole business. Ankle pumps make the muscle genuinely contract and push. That means warmer feet, less swelling, less strain on those fragile veins. But ankle pumps only wake the system up. They're the gentle knock on the door. The next movement goes after the bigger, stronger muscles higher up your leg, and it's going to surprise you with how much it asks. Number 4. The seated leg lift. If you're thinking that sitting down makes this an easy one, well, your legs are going to tell you a very different story about 10 seconds in. When you straighten your leg out in front of you and hold it there, you fire up the big muscles across the front of your thigh and the front of your hip. And these aren't just any muscles. These are the exact ones you rely on to stand up out of a chair, to climb a flight of stairs, to catch yourself the instant you start to go down. When they contract, they press on the large veins running up through your thigh and help drive the blood out of the leg and upward. Here's a piece that makes it all click into place. Doctors who work with older adults track something called gait speed, which is just a fancy way of saying how fast you walk. They call it the 6th vital sign, right up there alongside your pulse and your blood pressure, because how fast you walk turns out to quietly predict your fall risk, your independence, and even how many good years you may have left. When walking slows down, it's often one of the very first signals that the body is losing ground somewhere, and strengthening the muscles that carry you is exactly how you defend that ground. So here's how you do it. Sit up tall in a sturdy chair, with your back pressed firmly against the seat, and both feet flat on the floor. Slowly lift one leg straight out in front of you, keeping the knee as straight as is comfortable. Hold it there for 2 seconds. Then lower it back down slowly. Don't just let the foot flop to the floor. That's 1 repetition. Do 10 to 15 on one leg, then switch. The detail nearly everyone gets wrong is the back. Keep it pressed against the chair the whole time, so you can't cheat by rocking and using momentum. That's what forces the right muscles to actually do the work, and that's where the circulation benefit comes from. As it starts to feel easy, add a little resistance, a light ankle weight, or a resistance band looped around your foot. Even 1 or 2 pounds makes a real difference. Muscle responds to gentle, steady load at any age, and older adults very often improve faster than they'd ever expect, simply because they're starting from further back. This movement builds the strength that keeps you walking, and it moves blood through the upper leg in a way ankle pumps alone can never reach. But even strong thighs won't protect you if your balance system isn't firing the way it should. And that's exactly where we go next. Number 3, the supported calf raise. This is the movement that trains your circulation and your balance at the very same time. And balance, well, balance is the quiet thing that decides whether a person holds on to their independence or slowly watches it slip away. Every time your calves contract, they squeeze those deep veins and force blood upward against gravity. Weak calves mean blood pools, swelling climbs, and your balance reactions get just a little slower. So an ordinary little stumble becomes far more likely to turn into an actual fall on the floor. Let me pause for just 1 second here, because this is a natural spot for a small favor. If any of this has been useful to you so far, please subscribe, tap the like button, and leave me a comment telling me which of these 5 movements you're going to start with today. I read every single comment that comes in, and it genuinely shapes what I make for you next. That's it. Now, back to your calves. To do a supported calf raise, stand behind a sturdy chair or at your kitchen counter and rest your hands on it lightly for balance. Feet about hip-width apart. Rise up slowly onto the balls of your feet, lifting your heels as high as is comfortable. At the top, pause for 2 or 3 seconds and keep your eyes looking straight ahead rather than down at your feet. Then lower yourself slowly. Take a full 3 seconds to come back down. That slow tempo and that little pause at the top, that's where the real work lives. It makes your calf muscles and your balance system fire together, which is the precise thing your body has to do when you catch yourself mid-stumble in the kitchen. Start with 10. Build toward 20 or 25 as you get stronger. Over just a few weeks, this one movement can improve your ankle stability, your circulation, and how fast you react, all at once, and all without pounding on your knees or your hips. For a lot of the people I've cared for, this was the one that first made them feel genuinely steady on their own 2 feet again. But standing on 2 feet, that's the gentle version. The next movement takes one of those feet away, and there's a number tied to it that stopped me cold the first time I read it. Number 2, the single leg stance hold. Before you wave this one off as just balance stuff with nothing to do with your blood, let me give you the number that made me take it dead seriously. Back in 2022, researchers followed more than 1,700 adults over several years. They found that the people who couldn't stand on one leg for just 10 seconds had a dramatically higher risk of dying over the years that followed, compared with the people who could hold it steady, 10 seconds. And here's the part that stops me every single time. Among adults in their early 70s, fewer than half of them could pass that simple little test. A 10-second balance check told those researchers more about the road ahead than nearly anything else they measured that day. You can actually try this right now, carefully, with a counter or a solid chair right beside you. Stand up tall. Put one hand near something you can grab in a hurry. Lift 1 foot an inch or 2 off the floor and see whether you can hold it steady for 10 seconds without grabbing on. That's the test. And it also happens to be the exercise. Why does it do so much for your blood flow? It comes down to time. The instant you stand on one leg, your calf, your ankle, your hip, and your core all have to contract and keep contracting to hold you upright. That sustained squeeze keeps the pump running the entire time, pushing blood up instead of letting it settle back down into your foot. Ordinary walking never asks for that. You're on one foot for a split second, and then you're off it again. Standing on one leg forces the pump to stay switched on. To train it, stand next to a counter or a wall with one hand resting lightly on it for safety. Shift your weight onto one leg and lift the other foot just an inch off the floor. You don't need to lift it high at all. Stand tall, eyes forward, and don't curl your toes to grip the ground. Hold for 20 to 30 seconds, breathing normally the whole time. Then switch legs. That's one set. Start with 2 rounds on each side. As it gets easier, rest your hand more and more lightly, until eventually you can just hover it above the surface without actually touching. But balance on its own keeps you upright without fully restoring the flow. For that, you need the single strongest version of the calf pump there is. And that, finally, is number 1. The exact movement I promised you all the way back at the beginning. Number 1. The standing calf pump hold. Here it is, the one I'd choose above every other if you made me pick just one. And once you understand what it's doing deep inside your leg, you'll see exactly why vascular rehab programs across the world lean on it almost the way they'd lean on a prescription. It looks a lot like the calf raise from number 3, with one small difference that changes absolutely everything. The hold. You rise up onto the balls of your feet, and then you stay right there. Your calves work like pressure pumps, and holding at the top keeps that pump fully squeezed, long enough to actually clear out the blood that's been stalling around your ankles and drive it up toward your heart. Think of it like squeezing a tube of toothpaste and holding the squeeze, instead of a quick little pinch. One empties the tube, the other barely moves a thing. Ankle pumps wake the system up. The single leg hold trains your control. But this movement, this one moves the blood, and then it keeps it moving. And the evidence behind it is real, not hand-waving. In a randomized trial published in the Journal of Vascular Surgery, people with genuinely poor leg circulation who followed a simple program built around calf raise exercise were able to walk noticeably farther before pain set in. Their pain-free walking distance improved meaningfully, with no medication and no machine involved anywhere. That's the calf pump doing the exact job it was built for. Here's how to do it safely. Stand behind a chair or at your counter, hands resting there for balance, feet about hip-width apart. Rise up slowly onto the balls of your feet, heels lifting as high as is comfortable. Now hold it, 3 to 5 seconds at the very top, breathing normally, eyes forward, then lower yourself back down slowly, about 3 seconds to come all the way down. That's 1 repetition. Start with 8 to 10. Work up over time to 15 or 20. Always with control, never rushing. The hold is the entire point. That sustained squeeze keeps the pump fully engaged, drives the blood up, brings the swelling down, and strengthens the exact muscles your body reaches for when you catch yourself. And because there's no jumping and no pounding anywhere in it, it's gentle enough for most people, even with achy joints or shaky balance, as long as you keep one hand on that counter. What changed for Eleanor? So let me tell you what happened with Eleanor, because this is where all of it finally landed for her. I had her stop obsessing over her step count. Instead, she did these 5 movements in order for about 12 minutes a day. Ankle pumps in her chair first thing in the morning. Seated leg lifts. The supported calf raises at the kitchen counter while her coffee brewed. The balance holds. And the standing calf pump holds right at the very end. Now, I'm going to be honest with you about her results. The way I always am. Her circulation did not turn into a 30-year-old's overnight, and I'd never promise you such a thing. But within a few weeks, her ankles weren't ballooning up by dinner anymore. Her feet were warmer at night, and the thing she told me she cared about most of all, she stopped feeling like she might tip over when she pushed herself up off the couch. She felt steady again. For a woman who'd been quietly terrified of falling, that was everything in the world. Before I send you off, I owe you one honest word of caution, because I'd far rather you be safe than sorry. If you ever get sudden, severe pain in one leg, or a leg turns pale and cold and numb out of nowhere, or you have a sore on your foot or ankle that simply will not heal, please don't sit at home doing exercises. Get looked at quickly, because that can signal a seriously blocked artery, and that's an emergency. Everything I've shown you today is meant for the slow, chronic, everyday poor circulation, not for a sudden crisis like that. Your quick recap. So there they are. 5 movements that wake up your second heart and get the blood climbing back up out of your legs. Number 5. Ankle pumps, to wake the pump up. Number 4. Seated leg lifts, to move blood up through the thighs. Number 3. Supported calf raises, for circulation and balance together. Number 2. The single leg hold, for that long, steady squeeze and the balance that keeps you upright. And number 1. The standing calf pump hold. The most powerful of them all. The one I'd pick without a moment's hesitation if you made me choose only one. And please, keep walking. Walking is wonderful and I never want you to stop. But walking alone leaves a real gap, and these 5 movements are what fill it. They take less than 15 minutes a day, they cost you nothing at all, and you can do every single one of them at home, in front of the television. Here's something to hold on to over the next few days. Many people notice their feet feel a little warmer within the first week, and their evening swelling starts easing not long after. Give it a fair, honest try for a couple of weeks, and pay attention to how you feel when you stand up. Your circulation is one of the very few things about getting older where you actually get a real vote. This right here is how you cast it. If this helped you today, go ahead and subscribe so the next one finds its way to you. And I'll be honest, there's a companion piece I want you to watch next, on the one thing you may be doing every single night in bed that's quietly working against everything you just learned here. It surprises almost everyone. Give this video a like, and tell me down in the comments which movement you're starting with first. Take good care of those legs of yours. This video is for general educational purposes only, and is not medical advice. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace the guidance of your own physician. Always consult your doctor before starting any new exercise program, especially if you have an existing health condition. If you experience a medical emergency, contact your local